I'm Mark Cole, and with me is David Leslie, both of us still recovering from the 60 hours of Le Mans, which Motors TV brought to you. Well, being fought out over 9 rounds between factory teams from Honda, Lexus and Nissan. David, Super GT is the world's fastest GT racing.
It is, and you've got two classes of cars here, the GT500, which is at the front of the grid, and the GT300 at the back. And basically, those numbers mean that the guys at the front have got 500 horsepower, the guys at the back 300 horsepower. And that's how it works, basically, nice and simple. When the start comes, the faster cars, the GT500 cars, will go first when the light turns to green. And about 10-15 seconds later, along come the GT300 cars for them to start their own race, their own separate race. On the track at the same time.
Well, Nissan's still looking for its first win of 2006, but Lexus badge Toyotas claimed the first and third rounds, while Honda took race 3. And it's that Honda, the Okayama winning Takati Dome NSX of Ryo Mishigami and Takashi Koguru, which leads the points on 38 from the Suzuka winning Tom's Lexus SC430 of German Andre Lotter and Japan's Juichi Wakasaka on 28. The Nismo Fairlady Z, that's a 350Z to Europeans. The Japanese Satoshi Motoyama and Suguya Matsuda's third on 26. But it's another Nissan on pole today, the Team Honda Arta NSX of Britain Ralph Furman and Japan's Daisuke Ito. And this is the car and crew which took pole here last year, only for an exhausted Ito to lose the lead with 3 laps to go when his cool suit failed in the 40 centigrade Malaysian heat, David.
Yes, and Ralph Furman on pole position in that Honda NSX, so he'll be looking forward to hopefully a little bit cooler race. It's not as warm here as they were expecting it to be, so that's a little bit of a help to them, but having a cool suit fail is not the best thing you can do in these warm conditions and these very, very hot and powerful cars. Well,
Britain's Richard Lyons was right there to pick up that win for Nissan as he and Satoshi Motoyama attempted to defend their 2004 GT title. They failed in that, but Richard's now back with Nismo at Sepang, joining German Mikael Krum in the 22 Motul car as Saikon Yamamoto is being called up. So, Super GT, round 4 from Japan's Japanese series from the Malaysian circuit of Sepang. We're just about ready to go racing on row 2, the number 1 Zenitsurumo Lexus of 2005 champions Toru Takagi Yuji Tachikawa with France's Benoit Trullier and Japan's Kazuki Hoshino in the number 12 Calsonic Impulse Z car. And they're under starters orders, and there's a big move there made by Mikael Krum, trying to get ahead of Ralph Furman, who's starting at Honda. But David, look at that Honda go down towards turn 1.
That's certainly got a lot of speed, and while the Nissan there got a good start, the Honda certainly had the power to get himself off to that first corner first. You can see there Honda first. Oh, and that's the Calsonic car really pushing his way in there, making the Zen Toyota really having to move out of the way. So that's stretched the front just a little bit here.
We see so many accidents in the Grand Prix there, Formula 1 Grand Prix, cars hitting each other, breaking wheels, damaging these cars, much more solid, very strong space frame front and rear. There's the number 1 Zent car of the 2005 champions. He's fallen back a little bit, but the rest of the field streaming out. GT300 is just coming under starters orders, and there we see the battle going on between Nissan and Honda. A lot of pushing and shoving around this track.
Yeah, the track is certainly wide enough. They've got enough space here to be able to do whatever manoeuvres they really want to do. You can see them there coming down there, 3 abreast into that corner. Very wide circuit here. It is a Formula 1 circuit that's used on the World Championship circuit, and these guys very much enjoy coming here to Malaysia to use this circuit to the best ability. That's the yellow hat Toyota at the back there. They had to start at the back of the grid. They had an engine change, so they had been pushed back towards the back of the grid. But Peter Drumbrecht in that car, who won that last time out with his Dunlop shod car, but I spoke to him after the last race, and he said that he wasn't really expecting to be right at the front for this event, more so down to the difference in tyres rather than the difference in car. He's got the same car as quite a few of the other Toyota guys up there, but he's made a good start, starting from the back of the 15-car grid for the GT500 class here.
Carrying 60 kilos of handicap weight, and that's exceeded only by the points-leading NSX of Mishigami and Koguri. They got 70, but Peter also had to have an engine change, and under Super GT rules, you've got to run 2 races with the same engine, just like Formula 1. And so they got pushed right back anyway. 50,000 people here. It's the 3rd biggest event in Malaysia after the MotoGP and Formula 1, but much cooler today, David. 40 degrees last year, as we heard, but only 33 today, and it's quite a breeze, as you can see from the flags.
Yes, you say it's much cooler at 33, but believe me, 33 degrees is very warm. And then add on top of that, you're sitting inside a very enclosed car, a very hot car indeed, a car that you're racing, very high temperatures, engines, gearboxes, and all the oil and water temperatures inside there, which which makes the inside of these cars very warm indeed, and that's why a lot of the cars are fitted with what we call cool suits. This is like a little refrigerator box in the passenger side, and it's piping cool fluid round the cool suit, so little pipes going round your vest and round the skull cap to try and keep the driver as cool as possible. Obviously, the cooler you can keep the driver, the better he will work and the more efficient he's going to be. And for Ralph Furman, that's something he's obviously looking forward to, because he had a cool suit fail on him last time, and Ralph's not in the best of health. He's had a bit of a tummy bug this week before the race, but he's out there. He's decided to go first. I think it's a team decision, because he'll do the first stint, the shorter stint, shall we say. I think the pit stop opens at lap 20 when they can come in for the first time, so I think he'll be running from now until lap 20, and then he'll hop out, and his teammate will then, Ito will get in and do the rest of the race. And I think that's a team decision because of Ralph's not feeling as well as he should do.
Well, if he's not feeling well, he's doing a great job there, because he's just putting more and more space over Mikael Krum there in the Motul Ortex Z, and also on Benoit Trellier, the Frenchman, in the Calsonic Impal car. That's in third place, and back in fourth now the Zensarumo Lexus of Toru Takagi, well known to British racegoers of course, but Ralph Furman, great job here this afternoon. Fabulous circuit, Malaysia. I was here for Formula One in 1999, the first year it opened. Just such a brilliant complex with this grandstand between the first and last straight, so the spectators really get their money's worth. It's another of the Bernie
Hillman Taker.
Tilke built circuits. Down then into Pancor Lot, that's the first corner. All these corners named after famous places in Mercedes. Turn 4 Langkawi after the island there, then Genting, and then they come back round into the Sunway Lagoon and the Penang Strait. So very much part of the Kuala Lumpur International Airport. Here is GT300, and there's a car that was on pole position, David. That's the Shiden. That's the Japanese for Violet Lightning. That's named after a famous World War II fighter. But look, we've got Nissan out front now, and not only Nissan first, but Mazda in second.
That's right, and this number 13 car we've seen at the front on a regular basis, leading and winning these races, but in second place that little yellow Mazda. Now remember at the beginning of last year, we've seen how well that little Mazda was going. We sort of picked up on it and said really wanted to do well. It's one of the sort of less funded teams within the championship, and there they are. They're now running in second place ahead of the pole position car. And I have to say that pole position car new to the championship this year, the Shiden. There you see it in third place, car number 2. So looking very much a race car, whereas the rest of the cars very much are GT cars or sport cars you can see that you buy on the road. Second place is the Mazda's little RX-7 is what she's based on, but the Shiden very much looking like a race car, and they're looking very purposeful. Probably why it was on pole position. Absolutely.
Masami Kageyama in this number 13 Nissan at the moment, the Endless Advan car. That car is run under Nismo auspices, and Kageyama, of course, was the 1998 GT500 champion with Eric Comas, so there's quite a history for that driver too. That Shiden then falling back a little bit through the field. It's a car that's built in Japan. It's big beefy Toyota V8 engine in that, and we're looking at the moment. One thing by the way, no Lamborghini. If you're looking for that Murcielago, the one we saw at Le Mans, Marco Apicella and Yasutaka Hinoi, car was actually sent straight back to Japan after finishing 27th at Le Mans. Wasn't classified, but it did finish, David. First ever appearance at Lhasa.
Yes, and it's a lot of work still to do on that car. I think while it is getting better, it's still got a little bit further to go before it gets really good indeed. But that's the number 35 Bandai Toyota, and you can see this is the new Toyota for this year, and certainly have gone very well indeed, and that's Peter Drumbreck in that one now. Yeah,
big branding exercise this, the Lexus SC 430 now. That's really for the American market, because that's the big push coming. The Lexus been on sale there for a long time, but this year also for the first time the Lexus brand has been sold in Japan, so when they go back to the next race from Suzuka, Lexus will be hoping for a home win.
Yes, very much, and the various different circuits in Japan are owned by the different manufacturers, so when you get to your own circuit, then having done a bit of testing there, you very much feel that that's your circuit and that's where you want to do really well. And there are a number of 3 different Toyota teams with a new car for this year, so surely one of them should be able to go out and do the necessary job for them when they move on to the next race. But here we have out front Ralph Furman with the Honda NSX and the Autobax car. Now this has been going very well started getting really onto the pace in the middle of last year when he changed the engine from the turbo car back to normally aspirated, and really has been going forward. Here we see the battle in the GT300 and the Scheider car, the dark blue purple car you can see in third on the screen is actually sort of slipping backwards. He seems to be having one or two problems out there.
Yeah, this great looking car, isn't it? Oh, a bit of a nudge there. One of the Porsche's giving it a smack as it goes by. A bit unkind there. Ferraris aren't doing too well. We've seen a lot of good moves by the Ferraris over the last few races, the F360 Modenas, but not doing so well here at Sepang for some reason. But of course, David, this is a flattish circuit, and that's really playing into the hands, isn't it? Oh, big off there. That's the Ford GT. We'll have a talk about that in a minute. But this circuit really plays into the hands of these mid-engine cars like the Hondas, doesn't it?
It is. The circuit's got quite a few really quick corners and some very, very slow hairpins. A number of those slow hairpins around there. So you need a very nicely balanced car to be able to make the best use of the circuit. And of course, the mid-engine car is the one that's always seemed to be an ideal racing car. When you think about a single-seater car, then the engine in there is in the mid position. So rather than the Porsche, which is the tail end, which means it's very tail happy coming out of the hairpins and things like this, coming up here now to hairpin left, and I think that's where the tail engine cars like the Porsches struggle a little bit.
So Ralph Furman putting even more distance over. We just saw the Ford GT there, that silver car in the middle of the pack, the DHG Advan car. It's got the 3.5 litre Ford V8, and David, this I think is, if I'm right, this is the first Ford GT to be racing, isn't it?
It is. Ford really didn't want the GT to go racing, their new car, and they haven't sort of sanctioned it whatsoever, but the car was sanctioned in Japan, so we want to do that, and here's a cool going out now. This is to the leader, in actual fact, to Ralph Furman. Now we're not sure whether he's got a cool his driving down or he's got a problem with his cool suit. And why are they putting a board out? Normally we would talk to him on the radio, so there's a possibility there could be have lost radio transmission, that they're actually having to put a board out to him rather than simply speak to him on the radio. But he's coming around now to the last corner to the left-hander before you go down the start and finish straight. But we've seen the NSX mechanics there ready with a board that look as though they've just made that up, obviously, with some tape on a board to hang out to them, because normally you used to have various words you would hang out to drivers to let them know what was going on one lap later, but technology has moved on and the radios have got very much better, and you would be able to talk to your driver on the radio and give them very little information by board. But it looks like there's something extraordinary happening there for Ralph Furman.
Yeah, whereas the history, remember last year, as we said, Daisuke Ito, his cool suit failed in the closing laps of the race. That was a big problem for them, cost them the race win. Well, Super GT here from Sepang, and great racing right through the field. At the moment, Honda out front. Ralph Furman of Britain leading in the Arta NSX from Michael Krum in the Motor Lawtech car, which Richard Lyons will be taking over when they make the first round of pit stops. Now we're looking at probably something like lap 27. It's a 54-lap race. There's just one routine stop in these races, David, and of course, unlike other racing, GT racing, Le Mans type rules, they can do everything at once when they make the stop.
When I've watched the races previously, the fueling is done separate from the actual changing of tyres, but looking in the rules and regulations and something we read just before the race started, I get the impression that they can now do everything together. So when the actual pit stops come, I'll reserve my judgment till I actually see the pit stop, and we'll talk through it when it actually happens. I got a funny feeling, like most of the other championships, what I remember certainly is that the refueling is done separate from the rest of the work on the car. But here we see this was a car that was involved in an incident on the first couple of laps, and Toyota's in here getting a lot of tape put onto the front. There's a great lump missing off the front of the car there, so they'll be trying to tape what's left on there so as it doesn't get the air under it and try and rip even more off it.
Yeah, that's the number 66 car we're looking at there, getting that attention. That car was fairly well down the field. Where are we?
The Triple Sard Supra. It's one of the old Supras from last year that's out there. And
this is Macau driver Andre Couto's car, so he's not that far from home. He shares that car of Hiranaka. They had fairly bad qualifying, and he was involved, we're hearing, in the first lap incident. Quite a big chunk taken out of that front corner.
It wasn't just an incident, it looks like it was a very big incident. I mean, these cars have got very strong pieces of bodywork, because sometimes they do touch each other, do have little rubs, etc., so they have to be able to stand a reasonable knock. But looking in front of that number 66, it had more than a reasonable knock. It took a great massive lump out of it. Here we are again watching the number 8 leading car with Ralph Furman on board. I can see his lap times there in the corner. That's for the first 6 laps. All very consistent indeed, and at the moment he's obviously got a nice clear road in front of him. But fairly soon he'll be starting to catch the back markers. The guys from the GT300 class that started a little bit after them, the slower guys from that, will start to come in. There we are, you can see them just in the far end of the picture there. So he's got the length of this straight to go before he starts and catches those guys. And when that happens, there's a lot of overtaking to go on. And that's what happens with endurance racing. The overtaking is a very, very big part of endurance racing. You've really got to be able to not just be quick and not be consistent, as Ralph has been for the first 6 laps of this race with his lap times, but also you've got to be able to get through that traffic, that slower cars, those GT300 cars with something like 200 horsepower less, and probably not quite as good at handling, because they're based on more of a production car than these GT500 cars. These cars are allowed to do so much more to make them go quicker, which is why, you know, they really are the fastest GT cars in the world. But these are the GT300s, and this is the battle for the lead. The endless number 13 car has been caught by the little Mazda RX-7, the number 7 car, the yellow one there. And that's a battle for the lead now. And is he going to go down the inside? Not quite. Had a good look down the inside. Really worried the Nissan Fairlady in front, that Endless Z. That's there, the car that we would call the Nissan 350Z. In Japan, it's still called the Nissan Fairlady.
So Tetsuya Yamano on board that little yellow Mazda, and I have to say this car did start favourite in GT300. It's won here 3 out of the 4 times it's been here. Nearly had a pass there. This is very, very tight at the moment, so he's really pushing, getting plenty of slipstream out of that. He has a more slippery car than that Nissan. It's quite a bulky front on the front of this 350Z. Endless, by the way, they're Japanese brake suppliers.
They're actually... Endless, yes, they are brake suppliers, so they also get involved with wheels as well. That's how I know them as well, because they've been around for a long time. I know we had some bits and pieces from them when I raced for Nissan in the British Touring Car Championship.
So still Yamano really tailing Kageyama, Masaya Kageyama. As we said, he was the 1998 GT500 champion. Stepped down because he wanted to help develop this 350Z, and look at that, Yamano really has got a quicker car at the moment, David.
You would have to say that, but on this big long straight we'll see what happens with the slipstream, and there comes the little Mazda out from in behind. Now you can see the Nissan stayed to the side to try and sort of block that inside line, not able to do it, and through the inside goes the little Mazda, absolutely spot on. The Nissan tried its hardest to keep him behind. Little waves, thank you very much. Obviously nice clean racing, no running into each other, no simply chopping somebody off, and that's somebody off into the pit lane behind. You see, I'm not sure who that was, but somebody disappeared in the pit lane and in the back of the picture there. But you can see how evenly matched these cars are down the straight, because the Nissan still tucked right in behind the Mazda there.
Oh,
so close.
Yeah. There's a big drop there. I mean, it really is about a 2-foot step down there, and you get the wheel over that. The car just thumps down the road as you can't go into that first corner. Then you've got a very tight S's. Now you're going out to the back of the countryside, heading down towards Langkawi corner, and out of Langkawi into a long series of curves out to Genting, which takes them to the hairpin at the far end of the circuit. So GT300, it's Mazda from Nissan from Porsche. That Boxster at the moment has come up to 3rd place. That's surprising, because he was involved with in a collision with the Scheiden, the pole position Scheiden during qualifying. He got pushed about 10 places down the grid.
He did, but a lot of hard work, and he's there.
So with us at Sepang, round 4 of the Super GT Championship, watching the GT300 battle being carved up at the moment by our race leaders. Ralph Furman in the Honda's just gone through. This is the battle for second. Mikael Krum in the Motul Nissan holding off Benoit Trellier in the Calsonic car. So Nissan looking very, very strong today. We'd expected this to be a Honda race. They were on pole here last year, but they lost out because of a cool suit failure in the closing laps to Richard Lyons, the man who'll be taking this car, the Motul red Nissan, over. And just look at Krum throwing the car through there. A lot of rear end, loose rear end there.
Yes, he is. He's very much wanting to have a good result here for the for the car, and he wants to be up front. He's the guy who wants to win the race, but unfortunately at the moment that's not where he's going to be. He's very much in second place. The Nissan second and third there, as you can see them, but you know, he's trying his hard. He's not just trying to stay ahead of the Calsonic car that's behind him, but he's also still trying very much to keep in touch with Ralph Furman in the Honda NSX that's out in first place. But I think most of his attention is fixed on his mirrors at the moment to see what's behind him. But there we can see Ralph Furman now coming through the little GT300 cars in the background. The headlights are on now for the big GT500 cars. They know they've got to get through, and with the lights on they can try and sort of say to the little guys, look, here we are, we're coming, we've got the lights on, give us a little bit of space so we can get through there. But here's the rest of the cars coming through, and in fifth place the number 100 Ray Rig NSX there as well. So Honda's in first and fifth at the moment.
Yeah, Sebastian Philippe and Shinya Hosokawa, the drivers of that one. Sebastian Philippe, another of the Frenchmen here. A lot of them go here, don't they? We've got Trullier, we've got Eric Comas, we've got Sebastian Philippe. It's a very, very popular series for drivers who cannot always find the type of racing they need in Europe. And I mean, Richard Lanz is the classic. He's the 2004 champion, just missed the championship last year. They finished third, he and Motoyama, but he tried to get into champ car this year, and in the end gave up, realised he'd have to come back here. Just luckily, as he was looking at that, Sakon Yamamoto, who shares the car with Mikael Krum, who's promoted into Formula One to the Super Aguri team as its third driver, and so it's Krum who will be joined by Richard Lyons.
And that's going to be a really strong pairing with Michael Krum and Richard Lyons together. Richard obviously a previous winner of the championship here, so he'll very much be looking to push that team back right to the very front, and that was a battle that was had last year between the NSX that's leading now and the car in second place, the number 22 Moto Z car.
That Scheiden just been passed there, the 4.2 litre Toyota V8 we mentioned earlier. Wonderful car. I mean, it's a great construction. This is one man's dream. He wanted a supercar, and so he went ahead and did it. And a great history for that car. We did mention earlier that those of you who knew your World War II planes, Kawanishi built the Scheiden Kai, which was the Violet Lightning, one of the late fighters. Not many of them built, came towards the end of the war, but it was reckoned to be one of the best fighter planes to come out of Japan. Well, they've kept the name, they've kept the technology, and here it is, right in the middle of your picture there. Great looking car.
It is. It does really look like a race car rather than a road car, as the rest of the cars in the 300 category are, in actual fact. But here it is. It was struggling at the beginning. We've seen it drop from pole position down to third place quite early on, and it has been continuing to drop back down. We're not sure why it has a problem, but certainly it's not been able to keep up with the leaders, and certainly the number 7 Mazda or the number 13 Endless 350Z up front.
Janos Wimpfen of dailysportscar.com had quite a lot to say about that car. He reckoned it looked more like a Daytona prototype Grandam Rolex Series car than it does a Japanese Super GT car. Probably quite right as well.
I think he's very right, to be perfectly honest. The car really does look it looks like a race car. What can I say? I've said it a couple of times now, and all the rest of the cars there very much based on GT cars that you buy out of the showroom. But the rules and regulations state you can do these various different things. They went off, they looked at them and built the car accordingly, and I have to say, on being on pole position, they should have been very happy with that. Unfortunately, in the race, it's not quite living up to its name.
The other car, David, a lot of people ask about is the VMAC. I mean, we have described it before, there's several VMACs in this race. It's a Japanese design, loosely based on the Lotus Elise. They're built in Britain, built at Chigwell, and we believe it's Chris Craft's son, in fact, who builds them. We're not 100% sure on that. Quite difficult to find out a lot of information.
Yeah, I spent quite a lot of time today to try and find out a lot more about it, because last year we did mention that this is what we thought it came from or what it was actually doing, but in actual fact we didn't get it confirmed, and I tried to do that today, and unfortunately everything I tried came up with nothing to do with where it came from, other than the fact it was a Japanese car, and very much involved with one of the Japanese teams who's actually been running the car, involved with building and running the car over there in Japan. Now that's the Wilcom Advan VMAC 408R. That company actually design and build the car in Japan, or they certainly design it, but I think it's built in Britain.
Sepang, round 4 of the Super GT series, and at the moment Ralph Furman out front for Honda, just as he was here last year in the Malaysian heat. Here are the GT500s carving through the GT300 field. Big battles going on right down through the field, but at the moment Ralph Furman really putting distance over our second place car, Mikael Krum's Motor Lawtech Nissan, and the third place car, Benoit Trillier's Calsonic Impulse Z. So David, the heat really hasn't played as big a role as we thought, although worryingly early we noticed a cool sign being, cool question mark sign being shown to leader Furman.
We're not sure what the cool meant, but either I cool it down and don't be too fast with the pace, or cool the engine temperature down, or cool suit, or there's so many variations of what that could actually mean. So we're not sure what it actually means at the moment, but we found it difficult that they actually should put a board out and say that rather than do it on the radio. So maybe they've got a problem with the radio as well, as I said before.
Well, they're on the pit wall. We're watching the Raybrigg team chief there looking at his charge. That's the NSX. That is Team Kunimitsu. That's Mr. Takahashi was watching from the pit wall there. This is the Raybrigg car. As we said, that's Sebastian Philippe and Shinya Hosokawa gradually moving up through the field. And David, these cars, the Hondas, you mentioned earlier that big improvement last year. It was this race that really they got all their act together. The first time they changed from the twin turbos to the normally aspirated V6s, suddenly they got the car on pole position.
That's right, and they really started to move forward at the end of last year from that engine change and having some good results, and they're certainly putting that together for this year and looking forward to getting to a really good result. But we'll be back in a few minutes after these messages.
Welcome back to Motors TV. Welcome to our coverage of round 4 of the Super GT series here from Sepang in Malaysia. I'm Mark Cole, David Leslie with me, and David, the action hotting up a little bit for Ralph. He's not feeling that brilliant. His cool suit's gone down, but look at the lead he's putting over the rest of the field.
Yeah, he's still out there. He's still putting in some good times there. You can see the times. The times vary a little bit now, depending on he's in the traffic. We did see he was running constantly in the 2 minute 1 seconds or 2 minute dead, where he was running on his own for the first 6 laps. But on lap 8, he started to get into the traffic, having to lap the GT300 cars, and that immediately slowed him down. But it hasn't really put a great deal of difference in his gap between first and second. The number 22, the Motul car that's right up behind him there with Michael Krum on board. So they're finding the same problems getting through the GT300 cars, overtaking as what Ralph Furman is. So while the lap times have slowed down a little bit overall, they've still got the same sort of distance, about 5 seconds between them.
Yeah, he seems to stabilise at about 5 seconds, the gap, and seems to be getting the rules right, aren't they? They're they try to get the right mix, just as the ACO does at Le Mans. Here they try to do the same, get everything equal by using the weights restrictions. Weights the main thing. You get weights all through the field for everything. It's not just for winning. You get it for fastest lap. You get it for poles. You get it for first, second and third in in qualifying, of course. So they really play around with these weights far more than the ACO do.
Yes, the championship realises that weight makes a big difference in racing cars, and that's why racing cars, they always try and build them as light as possible. So therefore, if you play with the weight and you give a success ballast to somebody who does really well, that stops them doing constantly rather than stops the race from getting boring, and makes it that more than one manufacturer or more than one team has a chance to be able to go out there and win. So out there today, the Takata Dome, the NSX number 18, he's got a total of 70 kilos extra on board of that. The number 35 Bandai Toyota with Peter Dunbreck on board, he's got 60 kilos because he won the last time out, and that weight now varies all the way down through the field. And up front, the leading car has got no weight at all on it, so that's helping them tremendously. The number 22 car's only got 10 kilos, and the Calsonic car also only 10 kilos. So those cars that are light, i.e. the car leading with no weight, and the guys with 10 kilos only, first, second and third. So weight obviously playing a big factor in the racing nowadays.
So we're coming up towards quarter distance soon. That'll be at 14 laps. The order at the moment: Furman, Krum, Trullier, Andre Lotter in the Lexus. He's there in 4th place at the moment. All quite processional. Sebastian Philippe still 5th in the other Honda. We noticed that earlier on. In GT300, Yamano and the Mazda now ahead of Kageyama's Nissan. And well, notice the Ford now. The Ford GT has come up into 3rd place with Daisuke Aikida on board at the moment. That's a good performance by the Ford.
Yes, because it wasn't expected to do anything particularly special up here in the Super GT series, but now in its third race, it really is starting to move forward. I think they're learning more about the car, done a bit more testing with it, and they're finding their feet and actually trying to move forward with it. So I think they'll be very happy indeed with that current position.
Yeah, you'll notice on Ralph's car, by the way, what's this? Yes, passing. What does that mean?
They're making all these boards up with writing on them. I can almost guarantee that they've lost radio contact with Ralph Furman, because everything nowadays is done by a radio. And we did say earlier on, when they put the first board out that said cool on it, that I couldn't understand why they were doing that rather than just telling him on the radio. Now I see some more things. I don't know what it means, yes, passing. I'm not sure what it means at all, but obviously they're trying to relay various messages to Ralph Furman by the old-fashioned method of hanging a board out as he passes the start and finish line and going past his pits on the pit wall. And he's hopefully will be trying to decipher whatever it is they're trying to tell him, which means yes, passing, yes, keep passing. Now, then obviously, one of the problems they're going to have here with no radio is telling him when he's going to be able to come in for his pit stop. Now, we reckon because he wasn't feeling terribly well with it, we reckon he'll be one of the first people in order to change over to Ito to take over that car in order to get Ito to do the majority of the stint today, because quite often he'll do it the other way around, where Ralph will do the majority of the stint. But when you're not feeling too well, I'm pretty sure he'll do the shortest part. And but they've got to tell him when to get in. So having no radio, they've got to do something different. The old-fashioned way would be to give you a countdown on the bottom of your board as you go past the pits, which will be after this corner, would be an L and then a lap number, say L5, and then 4, 3, 2, 1, and then the word in on the following lap, and that would give you a countdown, so you knew exactly when to come in.
Yeah, now if you see close up to ahead of that car, you see a lot of British products on the side. Autobacks, who sponsor this car, they are these sort of Japanese Halfords, that's why that. So you go into Autobacks and you can buy your Holtz or anything like that, those products, just as if you're in Halfords. We're still following Ralph Furman, our race leader, as we're coming up towards the pit stop window. 15 laps now. We're told 20 laps is when the pit stop window is probably going to open for a lot of these cars. The race is going to be over 54 laps, which means 27 laps will be the halfway distance, and drivers have to drive a minimum of 25% to score points, and conversely, no driver can drive more than 75%. So if Ralph is still feeling rough, he's going to have to do at least a quarter of the race, which in fact he's just done, because 14 laps was quarter distance.
That is quarter distance, but the pit lane won't open until lap 20 to do the normal pit stop. So the thing about the percentage of the race that you have to do in order to score points doesn't really come into effect on these 300-kilometre races.
Yeah, the long one, of course, is going to be in August. That's the Suzuka 1,000 kilometres, and that's that I've been to in the years past, and that is always the hottest race I've ever been to. Not just because of the sort of 40-degree heat at Suzuka in August, but also the 95% humidity. That is the real killer. That's the real killer,
and for that you'll probably find that they will come up with an extra driver for quite a few of these cars, and you'll find 3 drivers in there rather than 2 for the 1,000 kilometres. Obviously, a lot of these guys, very young guys, very quick indeed, and extremely fit. So 1 and 2 teams will probably try and still carry on and do it with 2 drivers. But I think certainly in the GT300 class you'll find extra drivers being drafted in for that race.
David, huge amount of wing flexing there, as we see, as he rides over the curbs. I mean, there's been problems in Formula 1 earlier this year about that, but this wing on this car really is flexing a lot as he rides those bumps.
It's flexing for a totally different reason to what a single-seater does. It flexes because of the size of it. If you look at it, it's a full width of that car, and it's mounted in the centre. It's got 2 mountings in the centre, and you can see the overhang either side of those mountings is quite large. So what happens is that's where the movement comes from, and it sort of moves from side to side rather than moving down the way. The 2 wing mounts in the centre will stop it from moving down. Now in the single seaters, what they're talking about when they've got a flex on their wing is that the wing actually folds back down and becomes lower because of the air being pushed into it, and that in turn reduces the drag. Now that's not what's happening here with the flex on this rear wing. The rear wing is just so large, being the full width of the car, that it's the ends of it that are flexing up and down. Either end you can see flexing, but it is mounted very strongly in the centre with the two mounts. You can see the two mounts there on the back of the car. So it's flexing for very different reasons to those of the single-seater fraternity.
Now, what we're also noticing today, not much in the way of vapour trails off the wings. The humidity is quite low today. There is quite a stiff breeze coming in off the Indian Ocean, which is only about 10 kilometres to the east of the circuit here. This circuit is actually part of the Kuala Lumpur International Airport, the new airport, which is about 40 k's outside Kuala Lumpur. Kuala Lumpur itself means a river mouth, and that's how the capital Malaysia gets its name. Until quite recently, it had the world's tallest buildings in the Petronas Towers. That's now gone to Taipei, the capital of Taiwan. They've got the T100 tower there now, which has just taken it up. There's the Ford, just coming through the picture.
And behind we see our Porsche, and that looks like the 27's a VMAC, and the car behind is also a VMAC. And the blue and yellow one, I think, is a Toyota, if I remember right from memory.
Yeah, interesting story you found about the Directive Advan VMAC there, the car that we just saw Taniguchi driving in. Directive is much more than just a Japanese company.
Yes, it is. It's a new company that's only started for the racing. It only started at the beginning of beginning of 2005. Last year it started, the Directive, and they are very much involved in motorsport altogether. We see them here in the Japanese GT series, both the 300 and the GT 500 series. Got some punches in there as well. But they're also involved in European racing, and they're also involved in the GP2 category. And they've got very much an involvement in European racing. They're trying to bring drivers up through the various categories into towards Formula One. In fact, they even have an agreement with the McLaren Formula One team to try and help promote their young drivers towards Formula One. And to help do that, they've got a couple of very well-known names within motorsport to try and help them with that. And one of them is Jean Alesi, the ex-Formula One driver, and the other one is Dave Price, who runs the GP2 team that Oliver Pla, who is sponsored by them, and so it's to try and help them as well move forward in the international world of motorsport. So while it's a very new team, it certainly has got its finger in a number of motorsport pies.
It's also unique. It has the only lady team manager.
She's not only the team manager, she's also the CEO of the company. So very much this is her little baby, and she's in charge, and she's making quite an impact.
Yeah, car's certainly running well at the moment. Heading, if it goes on like this, heading certainly for a podium place later on. There at the moment is the Endless car that is leading in second in GT300 behind the Mazda. That Mazda's gone so far into the distance now, 6 seconds ahead at the moment, ahead of this man Kageyama in the Endless Nissan.
But just in third place behind him, we've seen the Ford GT. So the Ford GT has been working its way up through the grid. It didn't start terribly high up, but it's certainly got a lot better.
You're looking at second place car in GT300 at the moment. This is Kageyama at the wheel of the number 13 Endless Nissan, not turbocharged. This is the 3.5 litre atmospheric engine, and there right behind him in third place, the DHG Advan Ford. Great showing for this car. They've been working on this car all season. It missed the first couple of races, although it's at qualifying it was unable to get its act together, but slowly it's coming to them, just like the Lamborghini Murcielago did.
Yes, they'll be working, as I said earlier on, very hard on that car with a bit of extra testing and moving forward. And we can see the drivers now preparing themselves. Fairly soon some of the cars will be coming in. And if you're wondering why he's got little yellow bits in his ears and wires hanging down from it, wires not so they can pull the yellow bit out, but it's the radio system, and that'll be plugged into his ears. So once his balaclava goes on, his helmet goes on, they will then plug those wires into his helmet, and his helmet in turn into the car, so they can talk to the mechanics and engineers back on the pit wall. And we think that that's something that the leader at the moment can't do.
No, absolutely. So Ralph Furman driving sort of fairly deaf at the moment, not blind luckily, and those pit boards going out. So that was Hidetoshi Mitsusada, who's in the pits there, the one waiting to take over. Hasn't got his helmet on yet, or his balaclava, so they're not expecting him in yet. But lap 20 is when the pit window opens, And my guess is we're going to see some of the cars that have been having problems. That Scheiden, we haven't seen a lot of. It's been going backwards all the time. Maybe they'll come in and try and sort their problems out early on. But Ralph Furman will just stay out as long as he can, I guess. He's obviously at the call of the team, but if they're happy with his progress and they notice he's not losing laps for any reason, apart from when he gets caught up in traffic just occasionally, then presumably they'll leave him out as long as they can.
I think they'll bring him in at the first opportunity, and that'll be at 20 laps when the pit lane opens for this event. And because he's not been feeling too well, I think they'll take him out at that point and fit in Ito in his place and let Ito do the rest of the race. And very similar to what happened last year, because that's what happened last year here. This particular race meeting, Ralph started and Ito finished, and unfortunately Ito succumbed to the pressure of being in the lead and actually lost the lead towards the end of last year and ended up in second place. So I think Ralph Furman will be trying to build as big a lead as possible, so that when he hands it over to his teammate, he can go out there and try and stay in the lead.
Well, now he's coming up behind GT300 traffic. Maybe that's the time when they start thinking, right, okay, we'll get him quite soon before he gets blocked and lets those behind catch up. Basically Krum and Trullia in the two Nissans, they're chasing him down here. Lexus really not figuring today, David. I think Lotter in the number 36 car is something like 10 seconds behind at the moment. I'm a bit surprised at that.
Yes, I think everybody's a bit surprised that the Toyota really isn't quite on the ball. The first one in fourth place, number 36 Open Face car is when you think about it, fourth place is actually quite good. But when you're talking about competing against the likes of Nissan and Honda, then you really got to compete, and you're looking for first place. And if you're not in first place, then really for the manufacturers, then that's simply not good enough. And Honda, the people that are in first place, Ralph Furman finding quite difficult here through the corners to get past the GT300 cars. I know when he gets onto the straight with that extra 200 horsepower he's got, life becomes a little bit easier. But in the background, one of the little VMAX cars having a problem. But round the outside of one of the Nissan fair ladies goes Ralph Furman, and here we are in the pit lane, seeing who's coming in first. Not sure who's coming in first, but the pit lane is obviously ready for somebody, and we're not sure who's going to be first into the pit lane. But when the pit lane opens, I think there'll be a bit of a flurry at the beginning, then maybe a little bit of a space, and then maybe a few more will come in after that, and then I'm sure somebody's engineers will decide that they'll do the opposite, and they'll run as long as possible before they come in. But that's what's good about all the endurance racing, is that you've got lots of different ideas of what is the best idea of how to run a race and how to run an endurance race, when the best time is to do a pit stop. Shall you come in early if you're in traffic, or leave it because you're running in open air, or come in later because that's when you've fueled the car to, and various other things like this. But there we see the gap has actually come down a little bit between the second place guy in the Motul Z. Well, there we are. That's one of the cars.
It is the Scheiden. Yeah, he's dropped down to 10th in class now. He's been having problems. Again, it's a new car, and they're just trying to sort everything out. They won't be too unhappy with this if they can keep running. But I think that's quite an interesting. Rocky Kato, by the way, taking out over, well known to British race goers from his days in Formula 3 and, of course, in Champ Car. Had some good races there. But Ralph Furman still moving. He didn't come into the pits this time. Window was open, as David said, but he's going for another lap, certainly. Maybe the board went out, told him to come in, but we'll see. And he'll be handing over that car to Daisuke Ito, the man who suffered last year from a failure of the cooling suit, was absolutely exhausted and dehydrated, and lost the lead of the race with 3 laps to go to Richard Lyons. So it's Richard's gain, but Ralph's loss. One Briton losing, another winning. And look at this, really being compromised now. That's why that gap's coming down.
I think it is. Once you're in traffic, that's exactly what happens. You know, the gap then seesaws up and down depending on who hits the traffic at which point on the circuit, and you really have to sort of plan ahead when you're in this situation in endurance racing as to shall I just catch a car as quickly as possible, or shall I just make sure that I catch it on the exit of the corner in order to get the use the straight line speed out of the corner along that big long straight. And here we see the long straight, and we see the 2 cars in the background in their second and third place.
He's going for the pits, I think, David. He's just gone, yes.
Yep, there he goes.
Yeah.
He's gone in, and what happened to the second place guy still carrying on, and I would take a good guess the third place Calsonic car would probably do the same thing, but into the pits, down to the pit lane speed limit, across the white line there, and that'll be at about 60 kilometres an hour, all the way along this pit lane. Big, obviously, long pit lane being a Formula 1 circuit, and right down the far end of the pit lane goes Ralph Furman with NSX. There it was his team. There we are. Stop at the board. very quickly out of the car, taking his drinks bottle with him, and he's unplugged the cool suit that was in there as well. You can see the cool suit coming out now. Then the fuel is being changed. There is no tyres. There's no other work being done on the car other than the fuel being put in. You can help the driver get fitted in. There you are. The fuel is finished. Up goes the car. The guy at the front, they're changing the rear tyres. There's no front tyres there at all. Driver changed. Car down there. Come on, out, out, out. Gone. So you cannot refuel and do other work. You can only, if you're refueling, only do the driver change, nothing else in the car. And they've only changed the rear tyres, not the front tyres. Now, what are the rest of the teams going to do? They'll have watched this and seen what's happened. There'll be big interest now to see what goes on with the rest of the teams.
So this is the car that was leading the race for Ralph Furman, just handed over to Daisuke Ito. They'll now drop back a little bit, and maybe they'll keep the virtual lead, because the man who they've got to stay ahead of after the pit stops is Mikael Krum in the number 22 Nissan and Benoit Trullier in the number 12 Nissan. So we've had a Briton leading a German and a Frenchman. They're all handing over to Japanese drivers for the second half of the race, and there behind is that still fairly badly damaged car of Andre Couto. That's the AAA Saab Supra GT. We have heard now that he was involved in that first corner collision with Ryo Mishigami, the championship leader, and several cars involved in that. But Couto, the man from Macau, got the worst of that, and he's now dropped right to the back of the field.
We can see the rest of the cars now. The number 24, the Wood one 350Z there, a little bit further down the grid. I'm trying to work out where he is. He's about 8th place. There he is at 8th place, and right behind him the Takata NSX, number 18, that one there, the green and white one, following him very closely indeed. And got to just sit now, wait, see, this is down the back part of the paddock. They're going to go down here, turn sharp left into the left-hander, or go straight into the pits. I'm not sure which they're going to do. We'll see what happens when they come round the corner. No, carrying on round here onto another lap.
Yeah, it's a very strange pit lane this, because you have to exit on the outside of the hairpin and then go out into the country bit. That was the little Mazda coming in, was it?
I think it was the Mazda. I'm not sure who it is, but I think it was the Mazda going in. But they've seen now a change, obviously, in the grid positions. Now that will all turn around over the next few laps, depending on who's in when. Now there's the number 100 Honda NSX in. That's the Ray Briggs, car with Stefan Philippe come in. He'll be handing over
to Hosokawa, yeah.
That's it. So they'll be dropping down the leaderboard, because that was in 5th place on the circuit.
So Mikael Krum is our leader at the moment. He is ahead of Benoit Trullier at the moment. Nissan 1-2, but how long's that going to stay? Because the Hondas are all stacking up again now. Ray Briggs car well in the running, and still no Lexus or even Toyota up the top end of the field. So this has been a disappointing weekend, I think, for Lexus and Toyota.
We found very much with the Toyota teams and their new Lexus car that they quite often come very strong towards the end of the race. So it's never a good idea to write them off at any point in one of these Super GT races in Japan. So keep an eye on them. They're always there. They were there in 4th place. We did see them there, and you never know that towards the end of the race. We've seen it before. They'd never really featured at the beginning of the race, then all of a sudden something happens in the middle, whether it's a tyre change, they put on some different tyres, or a driver change, or whatever it is, I'm not sure, but all of a sudden towards the end of a race they tend to be becoming a little bit stronger. So while we're not seeing them right up front at the moment along with the Nissans and the Hondas, I wouldn't write them off just yet.
Well, this man Eric Comas in the Wood One Kondo Z at the moment, he is probably running, I guess he's in 4th place at the moment. In fact, that's the Takata Dome they're showing us in 7th place, just behind him. So 6th place at the moment then for Comas. No, but he goes in goes the Takata Dome. That's Ryo Mishigami on board. He was involved in that first corner collision with Andre Couto, and he'll be handing the car over to Takashi Kogure. Of course, these two well up in the championship standings. Can they keep it up this weekend? They were lying they were 1st place, of course. They're championship leaders as they started this race, but the way things are going at the moment, they're going to drop down the order a little bit to Ito and Furman if they can pull the win off. David, take us through the stop.
Here we are, stopped. Driver getting out, fuel going in. You can see the fuel going in just behind where the driver is. and the mechanics, you can see them there just ready to get on with the wheel guns to be able to go. And the minute the guy comes off for the fuel, the guy at the front left-hand side will plug in the airline. That's the fuel off. He's plugged in the airline. Up goes the car. As soon as the car goes up, the mechanics start to change the wheels. There we are, rear wheels again. The Hondas are only changing the rear wheels. Big wave by the mechanics and engineers. Come on, we're on the ground, let's go. And they're going to restart the engine and get back out there, because when you come in for refueling, the engine has to be stopped. You can't leave the engine running. But once the fuel is off and the driver's in, you can restart the car, but you can't actually do anything else, obviously, until they lower it down onto the ground. And I'm pretty sure that when the driver comes in, he will leave it in first gear. So coming in, parking in first gear, so when you get in, press the clutch, it's already in first gear. So once you start it, the minute it's running, you can lift that clutch up and set yourself off, and spending as little time as possible in that pit lane. But there we see Richard Lyons waiting for his car coming in, so it won't be long now till the Nissan's in as well.
Yeah. So we're watching Takashi Kogure at the moment in the Takata Dome NSX there. He was the 2002 Japanese Formula 3 champion. He's come up through the usual Japanese ladder, Formula Nippon and Super GT. Still racing in both series this year, 10th in the series last year. And here we are, here comes Ito flashing to get past the Epson NSX car. This is the man who's clawing his way back up. Now the Epson car hasn't stopped yet, so he's already, well, he's just going in now, isn't he? But that's he's caught him up very quickly indeed, that Epson car. And that car was with started by Hideki Muto, and he'll be handing over to Frenchman Loic Duval.
But got to remember that his tyres will be fairly well worn, whereas the tyres on this car, the number 8 Honda NSX, have got nice new tyres on the back of the car, so he'll be getting some good grip around the corners with the rear tyres and very good acceleration out of the corners. And of course, it's always that acceleration out of the corners that can give you the good lap time, because if you can come out of the corner that little bit quicker, then you'll carry that speed all the way along the straight. And with the new rear tyres, I think that's what they're gambling on. But certainly in the pits, we've seen the Honda NSXs taking rear tyres only. What we haven't seen in the pit lane so far is the Nissan 350Z, to find out exactly what they're doing with tyre choice, whether they're going to go with all 4, hoping they can get a little bit more grip and try and pull back some of the time they've been losing to the lead car, this Autobac's number 8 NSX up front.
Well, we have had confirmation that Ralph did lose his radio, and obviously also not feeling too good. Cool suit problem, radio problem, throwing everything at him today, but fortunately Ralph able to overcome those, keep this car way out front, 5 seconds in the lead when he made the pit stop, despite getting tangled up in traffic. So now it's all down to Daisuke Ito, and Ito does not want to repeat it last year when he succumbed to the heat in the final 3 laps. Not so hot as we've told you today, 33 degrees, and in Malaysia that's quite a cool day.
Yes, very hot for us here in Britain, but in Malaysia that's not a terribly hot day. But there we see the fight for second place in the GT300 category. Here we see now then what's happened is they've driver out, changed the rear tyres, then the fuel goes on. This team does it slightly differently. That's because they're going to change the front tyres as well. That's what they're going to do. And you see the guy, he's got the fuel there plugged in, the driver's change going on there. And Michael Kroom out, Richard Lyons going in. Oh, and these two fighting for second place and making a mess of it. The Ford GT just locking up, going on. Now he's lost that second place. He just managed to take away from the Endless.
In fact,
Unfair Lady.
I think the Endless car's lost it as well, hasn't it? They're both locked up. Let's have a look again. I think they just outbraked each other, and the car behind them.
Oh, big hit as well.
Now watch that car behind. That's
We're trying to work out, was it a GT500 car? I think a GT500 car that went past the two of them.
Right.
So the battle ongoing and getting very ferocious for second place in the GT300 category.
Well, we're going to take a short break. It's getting really hot here in Sepang on the track, if not temperature-wise. Stay with us on Motors TV. Back in a moment. Well, you're back with Motors, right in the middle of the pit stop times, and here we are, the 22 car now in the pits, changing driver, tyres and fuel, and we've already seen this collision just a few minutes ago between the Ford GT and the Endless Nissan. As David correctly said, that's a Lexus coming through between them, so just a change of second and third there in the GT300 class.
Yeah, the Ford getting its position down the inside, moved over on the Nissan, bit of a touch, locked the brakes up, couldn't get it stopped in time. Nissan did get it stopped, although he had the back brakes locked before he got there. So these two having a real old battle, so hoping that the Ford guy, we hope he hasn't done too much damage to that left-hand front corner, having just run into the Endless Nissan. So a real bit of a battle here for second place. The number 7 Mazda gone off into the distance in front, but these two having a real battle. And how much longer is going to go before they come in and do their pit stops? Whether that will separate them or not, I'm not sure. But having had one bump already, I'm pretty sure that when they get together or get close enough, we may find them having yet another one.
I noticed the sponsor there, Doing. That's obviously very, very appropriate for that. But what I think is so encouraging about GT300, it is giving a lot of the smaller teams a chance to try these more exotic cars. It's been very much a sort of NASCAR type of sports car racing in the GT500 class, but GT300 they do give you a chance to experiment. That's why you've got the Boxster in there. It doesn't look hugely like a Boxster, but it is underneath all that. You've got the Ford GT, we've had the Lamborghini, we've got the VMAX, real classy cars we don't see outside Japan.
And that's right, and we've just seen there as the Endless Nissan goes round, in comes the Ford into the pit lane. So they're the one who's decided to take the pit stop first. They've obviously thinking, well, it's difficult to get past the Nissan. We'll try and do it in the pit lane. See if we can make a real good job of the pit stop. Oh, and that's one of the VMAX gone off into the gravel trap. I'm not sure which one that is. He's got the thing restarted, but seeing that gravel, I would think if he sinks a foot into it, there he goes. He doesn't go anywhere at all. And what's happened is he's braked late. He's locked the back brakes up, and he's spun that car off to the outside, and there we are. It's the number 62 car.
The Wilcom car we were talking about earlier on.
That's right, and that's the team that very much build or promote or look after this VMAX car, and we feel that while it is actually built in Britain, it's designed and promoted by that R&D group over in Japan. And there we see the vehicle coming to try and get it out of there. Four-wheel drive vehicle. It'll put a tow rope onto it and pull it to a place of safety. Once it's in a place of safety, then it's up to the driver to try and get himself back onto the circuit. But what they definitely need to do is move it from that position, because all those marshals there are in a very difficult position should somebody else have the same problem.
Very efficient marshalling, we have to say, here at Sepang circuit. Always has been thus since Formula 1 came here in 1999, and very well trained. A lot of them trained by the British Motor Racing Marshals Club, and as always.
Yes, you find that the marshals worldwide are trained by the marshals in Britain. There's a very good club in Britain for the British Motor Racing Marshal Club, and they produced along with the RAC-MSA a great number of documents to help you with your marshalling, with trying to recover vehicles, with the first aid and all the other bits and pieces that go towards looking after a race meeting when it comes to that side of the organisation. And it's thanks to a lot of people in Britain that marshalling throughout the world is a lot safer now than it used to be.
Well, so at the moment we're just seeing the motor car in fourth there. That's because Trellia has yet to stop in the Calsonic cars. Eric Comas hasn't stopped either in the Kondo Racing Nissan, and there's another car still between them. I'm not sure who it is at the moment. Might be that Raybrig car. Has that stopped yet? Yes, it has. That has stopped, but we're in fourth place at the moment. So we're still in this sort of virtual area of the race till everyone's made their pit stops. We're not know the race order, but I suspect that little Honda of Daisuke Ito is going to emerge still first overall, and of course that's the car that's ahead of this one at the moment, because they've both made their stops. So let's wait to see. This is our race leader you're looking at now. That is Benoit Coulier on board the Calsonic Impulse Z. Eric Comas behind him, and when those two stop, the status quo should be maintained with the Arta NSX ahead of the motor car and the Calsonic car run by Kazuyoshi Hoshino. We just saw him there. He used to be the fastest man in Japan. That was his claim to fame. When he makes his stops, they're going to try and rejoin in third place. So that is going to be a super efficient pit stop.
It is. This car's really been making good time while everybody else has been out of the pits. It's really pushing very hard indeed. You can see the car really squirming all over the circuit. That he's obviously been on the radio to him and said, look, you need to push all the time and try and get the best out of this period when everybody else is in doing their pit stops. and he really has been working hard at that car. You can see it moving all over the road. You can hear another battle further down the field, and that's a Porsche and the pole sitting Scheiden there that we're going through in front, and there's the number 12. Is it coming into the pits yet? Nope, still going round.
Goes out again. Calsonic, that's the radiator division of Nissan, so just filling in all the sponsors today. They're unfamiliar, of course, unless you watch Super GT a lot, but as familiar as British sponsors are to us here, the Japanese just love to get involve all their industries right the way through. This is a manufacturer-driven series, and so many people want to be involved.
And this is really hurting the number 12 Calsonic Nissan. He's stuck behind these two GT300s. They're fighting between each other, the Porsche and the Scheiden, and it's only eventually when he gets onto a quicker part of the circuit he can actually use that power to get past them. But certainly he lost time there, and that will not be good for him in order to try and take that second place away from the number 22 Mortal car that was in second before the pit stop started.
So there in the pits is Kazuki Hoshino. He's waiting to take over that Calsonic car. Benoit Trullier, is that car, when it makes its stop, going to rejoin in the lead? Second or third? It was in third before the pit stop. Has it been able to improve? Maybe not, as David just told us. Held up badly by traffic there.
And you can see just how quickly it does catch the other traffic, but as it comes up behind you can see them flashing their lights. They've got a little button on the steering wheel that when you press that button on the steering wheel, it will flash the lights for them. You don't have to actually physically flick the switch on and off and on and off to get the lights to flash, but a simple little button on the steering wheel, press it once and it'll flash 2 or 3 times, and that will allow them to get past the car in front.
So watching our current race leader, who still has to make his first pit stop, Frenchman Benoit Trullier in the Calsonic Impul Fairlady Z 350 Z to us. These cars have the twin turbo engines here in GT 500. That's a 3-litre V6 there, and still not stopping. And they come then. Another lap going up on the marker there. Big crowd here, 50,000 people here for this race. Big supporting program as well, and one of the best attended events here of the year outside the Grand Prix and the MotoGP. But they use this circuit a tremendous amount. There are 24 meetings here this year.
Yes, the circuit obviously new just 5-6 years ago, and it's been building up over that period of time. You know, when it was new, they only had a couple of races the first year, but as more and more people go out to Malaysia to use the circuit, because various other championships from around the world do come out to use this circuit, so the meetings have been getting bigger and bigger and better, and more of them. And certainly the Japanese GT Championship, Super GT, coming here to use their circuit and making good use of it as well. They've been here before, obviously, and they do really very much enjoy coming to such a fantastic facility, whereby they've got very good pit area, they've got a fantastic circuit with lots of space to be able to get past. And there we see the lead car from the GT300 has now come in to do a fuel, driver change and tyres as well.
Yeah, Yamano handing that car over. He started it and he's handing over to Iri. So looking all very good for them. As we told you earlier, this car has been here 4 times and it's won the last 3 times it's been here. Are they going to be able to repeat it today? So Hiroyuki Iri gets on board. Look, Yamano's very pleased with the job he's done today, isn't he? Yeah,
he should be as well. He's been done a very good job out there. You can see in looking in the garage how basic it looks in there. There's nothing very posh about it. When you look in the garages belonging to these guys, you'll see it's decked out with lots of people as well as lots of bits and pieces to make it look wonderful. Then again, these have manufacturers behind them, and the little Mazda unfortunately doesn't have that sort of funding.
Now that's interesting. The car that was leading before the stops, Daisuke Ito there, he has just gone past Eric Comas, and Comas has yet to stop, so he's actually he's put a whole pit stop between himself and Comas now, so that isn't looking so good for Eric in that car that he's showing. That's the Wood One Advan Kondo Z. I reckon he's going to be probably a minute behind when he rejoins.
Yes, I think he's going to be well off the pace. I don't know, there's obviously something not working well for them this weekend, whatever it might be with that car, but certainly struggling with it.
So Ito pushing on, hoping his cool suit's going to operate better. In comes our Race leader as was. This is Benoit Trullier handing over to Kazuki Hoshino.
And you can see the first thing they did was jack the car up and change the rear wheels. Once the rear wheels are changed, same as the other Nissan, what they're doing then is they're going to go on with the fuel, and while they're still doing the driver change, once the fuel is done, then they'll change the front wheels. See, they're ready to do the front wheels whenever there's somebody shouts that the fuel is finished. The guy's down low, you can't see him behind the door, he's down low. There we are, he shouted. There you are. Wheel nut off very quickly, off with the wheel, on with the next wheel. Special guns, on with the wheel nut. There it is, up, down, door shut. Car dropping down onto the road. There you are, lit up immediately. The rear wheel spin. Look at the black tyre mark left going out of there. He's in a hurry. So he knows he wants back out there onto that circuit to try and take away that lead.
Well, he's not going to do it, is he? Because Ito has been passed. He's got out just behind him, but is that going to be in third place or second place? Is he ahead of the Motul car? Let's see if we can see in the background. No sign of the Motul car yet. Hopefully we'll catch that up in a moment. But interestingly, as you pointed out, the Nissan's having to change all 4 tyres. The Hondas, though, only 2, yet they're all running on Bridgestones.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know what's happened. You know, different cars use the tyres in different ways, but certainly all the cars at the front on Bridgestones. I think it's the Wood one, Advan, that you said about Eric Komas. He's actually running on Yokohama's. Maybe that's why he is not doing quite so well. So maybe that when they get to this circuit, that the Bridgestone tyres work better than anybody else's, and the other guys with their either the Yokohamas or Dunlops are actually struggling a little bit in comparison. So it could be a tyre choice that makes a difference between some of the cars. We certainly know the Dunlop Shod car that had Peter Drumbreck on board. He was very much, that's the Bandai car. He felt that he would struggle here this weekend compared to winning last time out.
Yeah, now just as to underline just how professional this series is, all these guys came out here in February and had a major test here at Sepang just to get ready for this race, and just shows how much time, effort, money they're prepared to throw at this. Here's the Endless car. It's got a problem. This was lying second in GT300.
This is a major problem for them, and the bonnet's up. The guy's holding onto the fire extinguisher for some reason, as though they had a heat problem or a temperature problem. He's pointed to something underneath the bonnet. Yeah, they fire that extinguisher in there because that's into the engine. The engine is in there. It's very much lower down than normal. It's very much further back than normal. And they're obviously talking to the driver who's in there to try and get some information, but maybe the engine's not starting. It doesn't look as though it's starting. It does look as though it's on the ground, but something's obviously very hot. They're really firing that fire extinguisher in there. Now the fire extinguisher is very cold. Now it could be the car's not starting because the fuel is evaporating. They've come in, what you get is the fuel getting too hot and the engine doesn't start. So what you do is you fire the fire extinguisher in there, which is really cold material, to try and cool down the fuel rail. And because what's happening is the fuel is evaporating basically before it's getting into the engine and not allowing it to start. But basically this is their race over, because you know they had to be right up there and working at the front, racing with the Ford GT, but that's now long gone. You can see how worried looking the driver is inside there, and still the thing's not starting. I would say they've got that problem with their fuel being far too hot and not being able to start the engine.
Yeah, Tomonobu Fuji having just taken over the car, so that is going to hurt them badly. But look at Mazda, they are going to have a big lead. So concern at the GT300 Nissan pit there, and this car, the little Mazda, the Amamiya Aspera Drink RX-7, the one that David Leslie here certainly has always been rooting for. Whole of last year we were impressed with performances, and at the moment, David, he's en route for a win here at Sepang.
Yeah, you can listen to that, the noise of that little Mazda engine. I remember it from my racing Mazdas at Le Mans. It really does sing and is very, very noisy indeed, and it does sound wonderful when it's going round there. And he's obviously out there just trying to keep himself out of trouble, not touching anyone or getting involved with anybody else's incidents, and trying to reel off the laps towards the end of the race and keeping out of trouble, as we said. But I have to say, these little guys with this little team always, as Mark said earlier, go extremely well when they get to this circuit here at Malaysia. And you can see his lap times there. 2:13 is what he's doing at a 2:19 on the way in. Obviously the 3-minute 23 lap was the actual pit stop lap itself. So back to the lap times that the car was doing previously, and they'll be very happy with that indeed.
Of course, Yamanano, who started the car today, he joined this team this year. He was last year's GT300 champion with Toyota. He made the switch here, so that has helped this Mazda RX-7 program absolutely tremendously. And of course, that's, the car's got about a 2-litre capacity in the rotary. I think it's done by a formula, isn't it? 645 cc times 3, because you can't actually measure a rotary engine like you can a normal cylindered engine.
Well, it's not quite the same. When you think of the rotor going round, the rotor has got 3 pockets in it, and I think that's how they measure it. That's why they multiply it by 3, and then you've got 3 rotors in there anyway for the actual engine itself. So yes, they have a peculiar way of working out what the actual cc of the engine is, and when you read the technical specification, as Mark says, what it actually says is 654 cc multiplied by 3. Why it doesn't actually multiply by 3 and give you the answer of 2 litres approximately, I'm not quite sure, but Mazda with their rotary engine have always been a little bit different, and they've also been very, very successful with it indeed, being the only Japanese manufacturer so far to have gone out there and won the Le Mans 24 Hours, and they did that with the rotary engine.
Yes, absolutely. That was 1991 with Johnny Herbert, Bertram Gasho and Volker Weidler, and Johnny Herbert's still racing, we're glad to see, historic racing, and Bertram Gasho has disappeared, Volker Weidler seems to disappear, but certainly Mazda just pinning their hopes on privateer teams here. It'd be lovely to see them come back, wouldn't it, with the RX-8, the 4-door Mazda coupe as a proper factory effort.
Mazda as a company have always still been very much interested in motorsport. But you have to remember that Mazda is one of those companies owned by a much larger company now. One of their shareholders, large shareholder, is actually Ford. So when they want to do something, they obviously have to go to the board at Dearborn and Ford and say this is what we want to do, and then they'll either get a yes or a no of what they want to do. But I know Mazda still go to Le Mans, still look and see what goes on, still keep an eye on what goes on. They still race very much in America, in racing over there. So they haven't given up on racing, and no, they don't have a works team here at the Super GT series. But while they're out there leading the class in the GT300 here, I think Mazda will be very much buoyed by that, and still looking around to see what's available and what class they should be in, and where there's a possibility or opening for them to come back to international motorsport.
Good to see the Scheiden still running there, had its problems, dropped back to 10th in GT300 after the first stint, but still well up there, and from what I can see at the moment, it's moved up to about 5th place, so they've obviously solved their problems. Ito flashing, there's lights flashing, Vega's telling about the automatic flashes as he moves over to make space, but again, a good mixture of cars here. Look at that, ancient and modern almost there now. The Honda NSX really starting to show its age a little bit, isn't it?
It is. It's been around for a long time. It's now out of production, and they've actually stopped making it. They were looking at bringing a new one out sometime in the future, but this car, while it may be out of production, is still very much a very, very quick car indeed, and having led right from the start, being on pole position when it started the race. It got to the first corner first, under a little bit of pressure from the Nissan number 22 car before it got to the first corner, but only having lost the lead during the pit stop. When it came in, it was first car in basically to the pit stops, and but once the pit stops have all been done and sorted out, it's back there in the lead again.
So Honda coming here leading the championship. They're leading this 4th round at the moment, and while Toyota and Nissan have bought new cars out. Nissan last year with its Fair Lady Z, the 350Z as we call it, and Toyota have now gone over to the Lexus SC430. Honda still continuing with the car, as David says, is no longer on sale. So where do they go from here? I mean, what do you do next? Can you just carry on indefinitely until you've got a car that can take on the rest?
I think that's what they're going to have to do, I'm afraid. Just wait until the new car comes out.
So watching our race leader at the moment, this is Daisuke Ito. He took the car over from Ralph Furman on lap 21 of what's going to be a 54-lap race, going past marker traffic and putting a big gap over his pursuers, the first of which is Richard Lyons, the man from Northern Ireland, in the number 22 Motul Ortec Nissan Z. And in third place, Benoit Trullier in the Calsonic Impulse Z. So no change there since the start of the race, more or less. We just had a bit of shuffling on the first couple of laps, but now the race has settled down in almost processional, but never quite processional with this type of racing.
No, what we haven't seen is the gap at the moment between the number 22 Nissan and the number 12 Calsonic, the blue Nissan. So we know they were nose to tail before the pit stops, but we're not sure exactly at the moment how far apart they are after the pit stops. And the number 100 Raybrigg NSX was in fourth place. We believe that's still in fourth place. So that's quite good for them. They're carrying 30 kilos of weight ballast on that car, on that Raybrigg NSX. So they're working quite well. So certainly the weights we were talking about earlier on, having this ballast to try and help balance everything out so that nobody just simply walks away with the championship, nobody wins all the races, is working extremely well for everybody.
Richard Lyons then, they're in second place, coming down into that turn one, very tight, nasty turn, seen as so many accidents in Formula One.
And what we don't see behind him, we're trying to, what I was just saying is where is the Calsonic car, the Calsonic Impulse, the blue Nissan. We don't see it right behind it. These two were, before the pit stops, actually nose to tail, but whether that's because something that happened in the pit stop, or maybe that Richard Lyons is now just managing to get that car going a little bit quicker than the Calsonic Impulse car. I'm not sure, but certainly they've split themselves up second and third.
So Richard, of course, having won the 2004 Super GT Championship and the Formula Nippon Series back-to-back that year, he tried to repeat it last year, 2005, failed unfortunately, finished third in the championship, then decided to look elsewhere. His reasoning at that time, David, had been that if he could have two Super GT titles in his pocket, it would give him much more punch if he was looking at Formula One or Champ Car.
That's right, and he wanted to progress his racing career forward away from what he's been doing for a few years now out in the what was originally the Japanese GT, now the Super GT series. But having done that and won everything there was to win, really, he decided it was time to move on and try and get a drive in Champ Car. So he retired from the Super GT series at the end of last year and moved on to try and find a drive in single-seater racing. Unfortunately, that really hasn't worked for him for various reasons, and he was very much a man with not a great deal to do. He had a little bit of driving in the States, but not as much as he wanted, and certainly not as secure as he wanted. And then all of a sudden, with the change with inside the team, whereby the other driver Yamamoto was moving on to the Super Aguri F1 team as the third driver, that left a bit of a hole in the number 22 car, and Nismo, spending no time being wasted getting hold of Richard, said please come back and drive the car along with Michael Kroom for the rest of the season. So he's back, and I think he's very happy to be back indeed. Yeah,
he's very familiar in Japan, isn't he? He knows his way around there, he knows all the right people, he's very popular with the teams, and it's going to be a big career move this year if they can win that championship, because if they come first today in this race, there's going to be every chance that he and Michael Kroom are going to be launched up the series. Of course, Richard himself is going to be out of the slot, isn't he, because he's missed the first three races. Michael Kroom came here with 14 points, and if he finishes if he finishes second today with Richard, then that would elevate him probably up into third place. But Richard inevitably is always going to be behind him for the rest of the year.
That's right, Richard's not going to have a chance of winning the championship, but certainly he will help his teammate Michael Kroom to try and win the championship, and the main thing is to win the championship for the manufacturer, because it's the manufacturer that's paying their bills, so that's where they need to be, really.
So further down the order, there's an RBZ, the Takata NSX, the Yellow Hat Z. Haven't seen much of that this afternoon. That's the sponsor that Peter Dombrek had last year, and there is the gap now. We're just seeing it. Is that the Calsonic car? No, it's the fourth place car. And here, in the first time we've seen the third place car, and the first time we've seen that for a while, the number one Zent car. This is the car of last year's champions. That was Yuji Tachikawa, Toru Takagi. They've had a pretty rough race. They're almost a lap down at the moment. It's the Shinzan. Picking up there on the some of the tail enders there, fourth, I say tail enders, that's hardly fourth, that's the open face Tom's Toyota, but right behind him that number one car, the Zent Tsurumo, but that I believe is a lap down at the moment.
No, I don't think it's a lap down, actually. I think it's they're running together, and this is what we said earlier on about never writing the Toyotas off, because towards the end of the race they do sometimes come back very strong, and there we see in 5th place, yes, the number 1 car. So Toyota's now 4th and 5th. So while we didn't see very much of them earlier on, certainly very much now coming back into the frame.
Right, yes, that's a wrong call on my part, of course. So 4th and 5th, as you say, there is the gap between them. In fact, that Tsurumo SC430 closing.
Very much closing on the open interface that works Tom's car in front. And then when we see them coming down the straight, it wasn't that far in front. You could see the Calsonic car, in actual fact. The number 12 car was just in front of them. So these two cars either catching us. Certainly the number 1 car is this car here. We see the Zent car is catching both of them, both the
yeah, that was Ben Martrouillier
yep.
we saw in the pits there looking on. I think just hoping that they're not going to catch his car.
I think they're motoring. We did say earlier on that you know, towards the end of the race they do get strong, and that certainly seems to be what's happening at the moment.
So last year's champions then running at the moment in 5th place, looking for 4th place. Still very, very hot here. It's actually the sun's actually got a lot brighter now this part of the afternoon. This race started incidentally a little later in the afternoon as it did last year, so they would get out of the worst of the heat of the day, but they are picking up the evening sun. You can see the shadows beginning to lengthen now. This race though is not going to go into dark, but everyone watching anxiously from the pits. One thing we haven't had is a repeat of the afternoon rain. Normally about 5 o'clock in the afternoon we get tremendous storms coming over. They had it on both days of qualifying, but hasn't happened this afternoon.
Yes, that very often happens when you've got very hot climates, and I remember doing some testing in South Africa. It was the same there, and all of a sudden around about 4 or 5 o'clock it would suddenly get a quick 20-minute downpour, which would throw everyone into confusion, and then it would dry out very quickly. But these guys have had it very good this evening, and they've been able to carry on without any problems. But that's one of the little GT300 cars getting in the way and splitting them just as they're coming across the line. So that will put a little bit more time between the 2 cars, but very little in it. These two very much nose to tail, and pretty sure they're closing on that number 12 Calsonic car that's just up in front.
So Juichi Wakisaka, we're watching at the moment. He took over the car from Andre Lotterer, and he is losing at the moment Yuji Tachikawa. No relation, interestingly enough. There's the gap. There is the Calsonic car, and there's the gap back to 4th and 5th places. So at the moment, the Arta NSX of Tasuke Ito leading from Richard Lyons in the Motul Autech car. In 3rd place, that blue Calsonic car. We're going to take a break. Back in a moment. Welcome back to Motors. Problems here for the car that was in 4th place. This is the number 36 Nissan of Wakisaka. It's coming for attention to the rear end.
There's a problem with it, not sure what's wrong. They're having a good look round to see what's in the engine compartment, but it doesn't look very good indeed. This is the works car, the Tom's Run car. You can see the bodywork, how light it is there, but not doing anything to it, and it looks as though that's going to take no further part in this event.
They're certainly not looking very happy with that. That car was running a strong 4th place, so both those Lexus cars, 4th and 5th, on board there you can see at the moment. That is, in fact,
they're
in the car at the moment. Sorry.
Yeah, it's pushing the gear lever, doing something inside the car. I'm not sure what. I think that's just to try and find neutral, to try and push it away. But whatever it was, it looked at underneath the back of that car. Certainly looked very severe indeed. But here we see the Bandai car number 35. This is the winner of the last event, and they're obviously struggling in this heat and this circuit with their car for whatever reason.
Yeah, Peter Dombrek started it and then handed it over to Naoki Hattori. Well, Wakisaka gets out of that 36 car, their race is over. So that's our first retirement, I think, of the event. The first one we've seen, certainly. The end of this car, in fact, still going, but they're having a lot of problems, as you pointed out earlier, probably fuel vaporization after their pit stop. Here at the moment, though, the 22 car in 2nd place, Richard Lyons on board.
Now we can see now about 5 seconds to go. 5 seconds behind with 9 laps to go in this race. So he's really been putting and piling the pressure on to try and pull his car back up to the back of that number 8 Honda NSX. There you can see the times. It has been coming down, but it's taking him, a bit of time to do that. And for the last 3 laps, it's remained very steady indeed. Although a couple of laps before that, it'd been coming down. So he's very much trying hard, and he will have the headlights on, as is everybody in front of him, basically trying to have the headlights on. The Bandai Toyota Lexus has got the headlights on as well. He wants to get past the slower GT300 cars, but obviously Richard Lyons with the Nissan wanting past. And there we see the leader, number 8. The Arta NSX also got the flashing lights going, saying he wants past. Look at that, how close, right round the outside of that Ford GT. Now you really have to have faith in the driver of the GT300 car to do that, because if he makes a mistake or slides out or does something wrong, he would just run into you and just simply punch you straight off and into the gravel trap, and that'll be the end of your race. So Ito now trying very hard indeed and putting a lot of effort into keeping this car in front, because he's only about 5 seconds front. Oh, somebody has gone off in the back. You see in the background somebody was off into the gravel with lots of gravel being thrown up, trying to accelerate out of the gravel trap.
Yeah, I wonder if that's the number 6 Lexus. We haven't seen that go past at the moment, but down the pit straight then, there is Richard Lyons coming back down through the order. Now Richard's problem, of course, is that every time he speeds up, Ito ahead of him is going to speed up as well. And again, that Ford GT, very well driven, I have to say, here this afternoon. It's fallen down the order a little bit, down to 5th place. It's Hidetoshi Mitsusada handing over that car to Daisuke Aikida. It is in 5th place behind the Scheiden, so that battle continuing right throughout the afternoon. But this lead battle, as we say, Richard really unable to do much about the Honda ahead of him, because every time he speeds up, the Honda will speed up.
I'm pretty sure that the engineer and team manager on the pit wall will be saying, right, you're doing this time, he's doing that time, you need to push a bit harder, and we'll be trying to egg on his driver to say, we're leading this race, we can win this race, you've just got to keep on pushing and pushing and pushing to try and get there to the finish and make sure we win the race. They didn't win the race last year with the Honda. It lost the lead with only 3 laps to go, and I'm sure that Ito doesn't want that to happen again, and I'm sure his team manager and engineers will be on the radio to try and give him as much encouragement as possible to get past those markers, the slower GT500s, the slower GT300s that they're now mixed up with, in order to try and keep that gap between himself and the ever hard charging Richard Lyons.
Well, that number 1 car's managed to get himself ahead of the Raybrigg NSX we just noticed there. He's now up into 4th place behind the Calsonic car. Well, he was in 4th, of course, and he's still holding that place, so that's looking quite good. There is some salvage perhaps for Lexus this afternoon, Lexus and Toyota, whatever we want to call the brand, there behind Andre Kuta, who's still with that very, very battered AAA Toyota, one of the last year's Toyotas. But at the moment, just winding down these last few laps, and that gap not changing really.
It's come down a little bit, half a second off that last lap, and then you can see it on the straight there. The Honda first, back marker, and then the second place car with the Nissan coming in 3rd.
So 7 laps to go out of the 54 here in the heat of Malaysia this afternoon at Sepang, and at the moment it's all about Honda, starting from pole position and leading as we go into the final few laps of the race. Honda also coming to this race, leading the championship, not this car leading, but their teammates in the Takata Dome car, Ryo Mishigami, Takashi Kogura. At the moment they're running in 7th place. Are they going to be able to haul themselves up any further? This is the car watching at the moment, the car that's doing all the chasing, the factory Nismo Motul Ortec Z, Richard Lyons on board.
And he is very much putting the pressure on Ito at the moment, and there's nothing he can do but concentrate what's going on. But that's the number 35 car again, the Bandai car. But here's the leader of the GT300 category, the number 7 Mazda out there. Now then, he's not had it all his own way, because he had a very big lead earlier on, but that lead has been cut a little bit now. And in 2nd place we've had a change. We've now had the one a little Advan 320Rs, but he's having a real big battle with the number 19 Wellsport Celica. So quite a battle going on here for the GT300 category. So this car leading, but about 4 or 5 seconds behind, is a real battle for second place in GT300 category.
And what a great afternoon for them. That's for Tetsuya Yamano and Hiroki Iri. That's the Aspire drink RX-7, sort of a Japanese lead Bull, I suppose. It's a sport drink, like many of those things. The best sport drink out there, of course, is the one called Poker Sweat.
I've got no comment on that whatsoever, but here we see the Mazda driver really very upbeat, thumbs up. Yeah, we can do this, we can do this. He knows it's okay. I think they're now driving quite sensibly, knowing that they can do a reasonable lap time and keep that car in front. And there you can see it there coming up. I'm looking if I can see behind this the little VMAC, and quite a distance behind that, in actual fact, is the World Sports Celica.
That was Tetsuya Yamano, and he's obviously very pleased with himself at the moment. He was the GT300 champion driving Toyota last year. Toyota didn't offer him the big step up to GT500, so he said, right, I'm jumping ship, I'm going to Mazda. And look, this afternoon, that is really paying off. And as you can see, a very outgoing Japanese, very punchy young guy.
Yeah, he obviously he wants to move forward, and he couldn't move forward where he was, so he thought, we'll try something different. And different is certainly working for him this weekend. Big
puff of smoke out of the Ferrari just ahead. They had a dreadful afternoon today, the Ferraris. We're expecting to see a lot more from these 430 Modenas, but that one's got a trail of smoke coming out on the down changes, we just noticed a couple of times. Don't know if we'll see it again.
No, it doesn't look like it, but the Ferraris have been going very well in the GT300 category, but for whatever reason this weekend is not suiting them at all.
Just hasn't come to them, as you say. That's the Gym Centre Ferrari Dunlop car. That's actually 5 laps down now, that number 11 car, but this car, no problems at all. He is just going off into the sunset, and the gap at the moment between him and the Wed Sports Celica is something like 4 or 5 seconds. I don't know if we've actually got a visual at the moment, but with this race very rapidly coming to an end as they come past the pits with 4 to go, is it now?
And you can see them carrying on. They look at the tyre choices for the GT300 category, and most of those guys are on Yokohamas, and certainly the first 5 at the moment that are out there are all on Yokohama tyres. So very much different tyres being chosen by the teams for the GT500 and GT300 categories.
Well, spinner there. The second corner, just picking himself up, didn't quite catch who that was, but someone who had a quick spin was just rejoining. It hasn't hampered the progress of this man, fortunately. Hiroki Iri in the number 7 car, suitably for an RX-7, and he is going to win, I think, at the moment, the way things are going. But behind him, there's the Directive Advan car, and that car has come through into second place now, ahead of the Wed Sports Celica. What's been the Celica's problem?
The 2 cars really didn't feature the first part of the race at all, because we had the Endless Nissan and the Ford GT fighting for second place beginning of this race, but they've both had some sort of problems. The Endless car was seen in the pits with fuel vaporization problems and not being able to get it restarted, so it sort of disappeared somewhere. And the Ford GT, for some reason, has simply gone backwards, whether the second driver's not as quick, I'm not sure. But coming up through the field is the Directive Advan car, and then little Celica behind that. We hadn't seen the Celica, the World Sport car, at all, but certainly they've moved themselves up in the second half of this race.
So going into the last couple of laps here at Sepang, and we've got a car off on the outside. That's one of the
it's one of the Lexus, one of the new Lexus. I'm not sure which one it is, but it looks like they've obviously got a major problem out there.
Looks like the number 6 car, I think. This is our race leader, though. The car that Ralph Furman started from pole position. Daisuke Ito is on board now, and if they win here this afternoon, they are going to take the lead of the championship, thanks to their 3rd place at the opening round at Suzuka. 2 points finishes since then, and a win this afternoon, and that would give them, I think, 51 points, which would take them past the championship leaders.
Yeah, and you were right, that was the number 6 mobile sponsored Toyota there, and unfortunately whatever's wrong with it is serious. Oh, and what's wrong with this? It's got gravel in the front. There's a problem. The front is really low on that
front puncher
car. I don't know what's wrong with it. It's a Toyota, and for some reason it's very low. It is the puncture. I can see the tyre now is flat, almost flat at the front left hand side.
Well, that was our 4th place car, and he can't turn into the corners, David.
No, he can't do anything. When you got a puncture like that and you get such a soft tyre, really you can't carry any speed at all. And if he tries too quick at all, the tyre could, of course, just disintegrate. If it does that, it'll take the bodywork and everything with him. So he has a major problem. He's going to limp that car now back to the start and finish, get a new wheel and tyre put on there. He's obviously been in the gravel as well.
Well, that upsets the whole order, of course. He was in fourth. The Raybrigg NSX of Sebastian Philippe and Shinya Hosokawa is going to come up into fourth and into fifth. The Zanabi Nismo Z, that's the car of Satoshi Motoyama and Sugio Matsuda. And Takata Dome of Mishigami and Koguru, the championship leaders at the start of this race. They'll finish in sixth place, but they are going to lose the championship lead to their team, their Honda stablemates Daisuke Ito and Ralph Furman at the end of the afternoon. In comes the Zent car, then he makes the pits. Luckily, not too much time left, but they're going to have a problem getting that car off.
No, I think the wheel and tyre will come off quite easily, but they are locked up. As you see, he brakes because there's no grip there, because there's no air in the tyre. He just locks up when he brakes to try and slow the car down to its 60 kilometres for the pit lane, and they're at the head of the pit lane. It'll be in there. He'll have been on the radio, he'll have said what's wrong, they'll have been watching the TV screens, they'll see what's wrong. They'll have a tyre ready for it, it'll be in, jack it up, change the wheel very quickly. One wheel I'm pretty sure is all they'll change, and get it straight back out onto the circuit and try and salvage something from what was going to be a reasonable result for the Toyota. Had been nowhere, and all of a sudden had a sort of reasonable result in that balance, and now all of a sudden Toyota with nothing up front at all.
Good to see both the Scheiden and the Ford GT figuring there in the top six. That's a big result today for those new cars.
It is. The Scheiden started in pole position, then went backwards, but seemed to have, again, in the second half of this race, come back again. So the race does very much ebb and flow depending on which drivers are in which part of the race, as to who's really quick and who isn't. So the race is never over until that checker flag falls, and all of a sudden, some of the cars we didn't see in the beginning really are coming back towards the end.
Well, that car right behind our second place Durex Advan VMAC is the Wed Sports Celica. There he is. And look at that, that's for position. This is the second place. So he made the most of that attempt to try and get by the directive car, which was briefly held up by Andre Coute's rather battered Toyota there. But this is, as we go into the final couple of laps, David, still racing for position.
Yes, it is. That Celica we knew was a little bit further back, but he has been catching all the time. We've seen on the side of the screen there the lap times, whereby the Celica has been a lot quicker than the little directive VMAC car, and has really been reeling him in. Now then, the question is, can that little VMAC keep the Celica behind? And every now and again you get the big GT500 cars coming in between in order to carry on with their own race. So that will help the little directive VMAC at the moment, put a little bit of space between himself and the Celica, and that's yet another of the GT500s. So he's now got two GT500s between himself and the Celica. So from a couple of corners ago, the Celica being all over the back of the little directive VMAC, now all of a sudden he's about a second and a half behind, and that guy's not giving up. He's not handing it over to the big GT500 cars. They're having to work very hard to find their own way past, because he's got his own race to go out there and win, and that's what he wants to do. Win he's not going to be able to do, I don't think, in the last couple of laps, but certainly hang on to second place podium position rather than dropping down to third.
Yeah, this is a very, very slippery shape, of course, these VMAX, and he's able to find extra straight line speed, but it's not helping the cause of the GT500s, as you say. By the way, the number one Tsurumo car we just saw going into the pits, that has dropped down one lap, so it's now out of contention for points today. Great shame after a strong drive bringing those Lexus SC430s up into the top five, and both of them have gone out with problems. Big lock up there for that Lexus. It's finally got past the 27 car.
You can see another of the GT500s between those two, lying second and third in the GT300, but out in the lead with 2 laps to go. You can see the number 8 Honda, and he's certainly not allowing the Nissan to catch him anymore. That gap has sort of stabilised at about 4 or 5 seconds, and it looked as though the Nissan was catching for a long time, but he seems to have held him at bay. I'm sure the team manager engineer has been on the radio trying to get him to push on. You can see things like that going right round the outside of people and not waiting to overtake them on the straights like they were at the beginning of the race, but really trying hard now, and up to 6.6 seconds now between first and second. So Ito very much on the ball and pushing hard with the Honda.
So Honda, Nissan and Honda are top 6. Lexus completely out of it this afternoon. To be very, very worried faces in the Toyota pits now after that. They could at least hope to salvage 4th and 5th positions. They lost those, unfortunately, in the closing laps. We had a problem, we're not sure what, back end for the number 36 car, the number 1 car. This race compromised by a puncture in the closing laps, but this car, no problem. He's about to go into his final lap, and Ralph Furman and Daisuke Ito are going to take their first win since last year. That win last year came, where was it? That was back at Sugo.
And there we are on to the start and finish, just to start the last lap now for the lead car, the number 8 Honda NSX. And I'm sure they'll be very relieved in about 2 minutes and 3 seconds time when that car appears back.
So Ralph Furman, the man who made his name here in Japan, Formula 3 champion, went into Formula 1, now back in Japan. So final lap now for the Honda Autobacks Arta NSX of Daisuke Ito at the wheel, Ralph Furman, who started it from pole position. This is going to be a great afternoon for Honda. It's going to be their second win of the season in just 4 races. Yes,
that's going to be a really big bonus for them, and it should move them to the top of the championship table point. And I have to say that they'll arrive at the next race meeting with a bit more weight on. They started this one with 0 weight, and so that has helped them, I'm sure, throughout the whole of this race. But the team will be very much on top of their game, and we'll go to the next race thinking, well, we won the last race, so there's no reason why we can't win the next one. And very much looking forward to it. And just in the background you see going past the Nissan number 22, which is the mortal car of Richard Lyons in the background. But in the background it has been all day, because a flag-to-flag victory it looks like for this number 8 NSX.
Yeah, so joy for Honda today. Nissan can be buoyed a little bit by 2nd and 3rd places, but the fact remains they have yet to win a race this year, Nissan. I'm sure that's going to come in time, but Lexus taking those other 2 wins. It was Wakisaka and Lotterer in Suzuka, and in Fuji it was Peter Dumbrick and Naoki Hattori. They paid though with hadn't have an engine change this weekend, and also weighed down by 60 kilos of additional weight. This car that's going through now, no weight at all, so that's the only car that's running on the limit in the whole of the GT500 field. 1100 kilos, that's the minimum weight, and that's what they started the race as, and they take the checkered flag then to win round 4 here in Sepang.
And I think that's you can see the flags being waved there. That's one very, very happy team indeed, and not having had a win since last year, they'll be very much looking forward to this. Ralph Furman looking very happy indeed with his sunglasses on, waving the flag along with the rest of the team as Ito came across the line. But here we see the rest of the people coming through for the rest of the positions. We know that Richard Lyon's gone through in 2nd place, and the Calsonic car now through in 3rd. This car, the Ray Brigg car, coming through into 4th place, and right behind that yellow Mazda in 1st in its class. So that's a class win for the GT300 for the little Mazda. And then right behind that you can see the 2 vehicles nose to tail, and the VMAC did manage to hold off the Celica. So the Rexif and Van VMAC 320R for the last 4 laps was very much trying hard to hold off that Worldsport Celica. So that's 1st, 2nd and 3rd in the category for the GT300. But the Mazda, having crossed the line, has stopped immediately afterwards. Now I don't know why that stopped, or if that's going to cause him a problem with scrutineering at the end of the event or whatever, but the driver looks as though he's wanting out of there for whatever reason. He's trying to pull the helmet off, the radio out and stuff like that, but that's quite unusual to see. Certainly the class leading car to go past the start and finish and then pull in at the end of the pit lane. He's pulled in very, very tight indeed to the end of the pit lane, so not sure what all that's about.
Might suggest just heat exhaustion, dehydration, because they were helping him with his helmet there. But interestingly, the Advan, the directs of Advan VMAC just hold on to its championship lead, but only just by 4 points now from that Mazda of Yamano and Iri. So 44 points in GT300 to Mitsuyama and Taniguchi in the VMAC, and 40 points to Yamano and Iri in the Mazda. And at the top of the tree, GT500, as we suspected, Ralph Furman, Daisuke Ito go into the championship lead, 51 points over the previous leaders, their stablemates Ryo Mishigami and Takashi Koguru. So we have at the moment Honda 1 and 2 at the top of the GT500 driver points. Michael Krum in third place on 35 points for Nissan.
And you can see all the guys now coming around with the marshals out waving their flags to show their appreciation of a very good race indeed in Malaysia. And they'll come back around to the start and finish. And this is something to do in the Super GT series, to park their cars all on the start and finish. They'll line them up as they come round in front of all the spectators, and then they'll take the drivers away to the podium finishes. So as they come along, you can see the marshals, they'll bring them along, they'll park them in herringbone fashion, pointing towards the spectators as they arrive, and as each car comes along, they'll park beside that lead car. And you see there the mechanics there very quickly indeed there to congratulate their driver. And a good result this year compared to last year. Last year he lost it with 3 laps to go. This year he's managed to hold on to that and win.
So Daisuke Ito absolutely delighted with that win. Ralph Furman joining him. Their last win at Autopolis last year, round 7 of the championship. They finished second in the series, so they started this year as defending vice champions. Now this afternoon here in Sepang in Malaysia, they've gone to the top of the championship standings.
And you can see the press now very quickly they arrive there to see him as he takes off the helmet, the hands device, and the ear plugs come out, a little bit of a wet towel to cool him down. But there's the two of them now jumping up onto the podium finish, top step of the podium finish. They've got their Otterback's flag, they've got their Bridgestone hats, and being on top of that podium makes them very happy indeed. They see Ralph Furman number 1, I'm number 1 up here. He's a very happy man. He may not have been feeling well at the beginning of the week, but he feels an awful lot better now that the race is finished.
Well, he knows the whole of Norfolk is watching him here on Motors TV, doesn't he? Interestingly, David, the top 4 finishes today, all European drivers showing those cars. Ralph Furman, Richard Lyons, Benoit Trullier and Sebastian Philippe. Just shows how strong the pull is of this Super GT series. It's more than just a Japanese series now.
It is very much an international series, and that's what they've tried to do with. That's why they changed the name from the Japanese GT series to the Super GT series, and it is a super series indeed. And here it comes along, typically giant-sized trophies for a giant-sized meeting here in Malaysia at Sepang. So there goes the trophy to the winning drivers.
So next race is going to be Sugo, another 300-kilometre race, just like Sepang was this weekend. We'll be covering that again on Motors TV at the end of July. And David, a good result this afternoon for Honda. They're going to maintain their lead in the championship now?
Yes, Team Honda have a lead in the championship, and it's not a very big lead. It's 6 points over their teammates, their number 18 car, and that's the I'm trying to remember the number 18 car.
Yeah, that's Mishigami and Koguru.
That's it. It's the other one. The two Nismo cars coming up next.